It was almost dark when I heard the first sound, somewhere deep in the woods, like a desperate cry muffled by trees and wind. At first, I ignored it. I'd been doing that a lot lately, ignoring things, people, thoughts. I had moved out here 3 months ago, off the grid, into this worn-out cabin I bought for cheap. No neighbors in sight, just trees that never asked questions. After my brother died, I needed silence. But silence, I learned, can be loud in its own way. That cry, sharp and wet, like pain mixed with fear, it came again. Closer. I grabbed the flashlight and my jacket, cursing myself even as I stepped into the cold air. I didn't know anyone anything. Not anymore. But that sound wouldn't let me go. About 200 yards behind the cabin, near an old deer trail, I found her. A lynx. One paw caught in a rusted steeljaw trap half buried under dead leaves. Her body was thin, ribs pressing against patchy fur, but her eyes were fire. She didn't move when she saw me, just watched. I'd seen videos of wild animals and traps before, but nothing prepares you for the smell of blood and urine or the way the metal digs into flesh. She didn't growl. She didn't try to flee, just held my gaze as if weighing me. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen. Then I crouched. She didn't flinch. "It's okay," I muttered, like that meant anything. I had no tools, so I used a thick branch to pry the trap open. It took a few tries. She whimpered once. Just once. The paw came free, but she didn't run. Just limped back a few steps, then stopped and stared again. "Go," I whispered, "before someone else finds you." And she did, slowly, without looking back, vanishing into the trees like smoke. I didn't sleep much that night. There were noises outside, twigs snapping, leaves rustling, but that's normal out here. At least, that's what I told myself. At one point, I could have sworn I heard something brush against the side of the cabin. I even stepped out onto the porch with a flashlight, but saw nothing. I woke up just after sunrise to scratching, not from inside, from the front porch. I pulled on jeans, still half asleep, thinking maybe a raccoon was digging through the bucket where I tossed scraps. I opened the front door and froze. 3 lynx kittens, cubs, whatever you call them, huddled together on the porch boards like a bundle of wet towels. Dirty, thin, their ears twitching. One of them mewed, a dry, scratchy sound, like its throat had given up on real noise. I stepped back. Slowly. They didn't run, just stared up at me with the same golden eyes their mother had. My brain was blank. Then one stupid thought filled it. I should have locked the door. But they weren't trying to come in. They weren't afraid, either. Just tired, beaten down, like they had walked too far for too long and found the only light left in the forest. And suddenly it hit me. She brought them here. The mother. She must have watched me last night, trusted me, and then she left them here like she wanted me to do something. My hands shook. This wasn't just wildlife anymore. This wasn't a bird hitting the window or a bear knocking over garbage. This was 3 living creatures abandoned on my porch, and I had no idea what to do with them. I backed into the house, shut the door, and leaned against it. My heart thumped so loud I could hear it. Then I heard them again, pawing. One soft yelp. I slid down to the floor and covered my face. I didn't sign up for this. They didn't move. The 3 of them stayed curled up like that, pressed against one another, their eyes tracking me each time I stepped onto the porch. I left some water in a tin pie pan and set it a few feet away. They didn't touch it, not while I was watching. That afternoon, I drove into town, 30 minutes down dirt and gravel to the nearest store. I bought raw chicken, liver, and a couple of trout from the fish section. I felt ridiculous, like I was prepping for some weird exotic pet party. The cashier, a woman named Nora, looked at me funny. "You're cooking something special?" she asked. I gave her a tight smile, just trying something new. When I got back, 2 of the cubs were asleep on the porch. One was pawing at the pie pan, licking the dried bottom. I opened the door slowly, didn't speak, just crouched, and slid a shallow tray of liver slices onto the boards. Then I backed off. They stared, sniffed. One of them, smaller than the others, moved first, mouth trembling. He took a piece and gulped it so fast he coughed. The others followed. I watched through the cracked window. It felt wrong, feeding wild animals. But what else could I do? They weren't going anywhere, and I knew what would happen if I did nothing. Just before sunset, I saw her again. The mother, standing at the edge of the trees, still limping, eyes fixed on the cabin. She didn't move closer. Just watched. Then she turned and disappeared again. I stood outside a little too long after that. The air was colder than it should have been. I tried not to make more of it than it was, but I felt something strange. Later that night, after I turned off the generator and let the silence settle, I sat by the window with the porch light off, just listening. That's when I heard it. Crunching, not soft, rustling steps like the cubs. Heavy, deliberate. I grabbed my flashlight, stepped onto the porch, and scanned the clearing. Nothing. Then I saw them. Tracks. Big ones. Leading around the house. They didn't belong to the lynx. Not shaped like cat prints. Wider. Deeper. I followed them for a few feet before the trail vanished into undergrowth. I stopped. Something wasn't right. Next morning, I called Larry. He was my closest neighbor. If you could call someone living 3 miles away a neighbor. Retired Army, tough as nails, but sharp. He picked up after 2 rings. Hey, it's me. You seen anything weird lately? I asked. There was a pause. Then, yeah, my dog's gone. Rex. Big mutt, but loyal. Didn't come back 2 nights ago. You hear coyotes? I hesitated. No, but I found tracks. Not coyote. Bigger. You think someone's messing with your place? Maybe. Or something else. Larry exhaled. I'll come by tomorrow. Bring my scope. We'll take a look. I spent the rest of the day walking the property line. And that's when I found it. Another trap. Rusted, just like the first. But this one was buried in moss behind a shed I'd barely touched since moving in. Still active. I disarmed it with a crowbar, hands shaking. Then I found another one by the dry creek. And then a third, wedged under the old fence post. This one wasn't rusted. This one was new. That night, I barely slept. I kept hearing twigs snapping again. I stayed by the window, rifle across my lap, lights off. Around 3 a.m., something brushed against the back wall. A slow drag, like cloth or fur. Then nothing. The cubs slept in a cardboard box by the front door now, layered with old towels. They didn't stir. When morning came, I stepped outside with coffee and saw something I hadn't expected. A feather, long black, jammed between 2 porch planks like it had been placed there. I picked it up. It wasn't a message, but it felt like one. The smallest cub wasn't eating. For 2 days, while the others grew stronger, he lay curled in the same towel-lined box, breathing too fast, eyes half closed. I tried warming him up, coaxing him with broth, even dripping water onto his tongue. Nothing worked. He whimpered every few hours, a sound like a whisper trying not to cry. By the morning of the 3rd day, I couldn't take it anymore. I wrapped him in an old flannel shirt, tucked him into a crate I used for tools, and drove to the only vet I knew who might not call someone. Her name was Dr. Wallace. She ran a small clinic in Pine Hollow, about 40 minutes from my place. She used to patch up hunting dogs, deer hit by cars, even a fox once. She owed me a favor. The waiting room was empty. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. She came out wiping her hands on a towel. You brought me a cat? She asked, arching a brow at the box. Wild kitten, I said. Found him under my shed. She studied my face, then nodded once. Let's see him. I watched her examine him. She said little, but her hands were careful. At one point she paused, pressed her fingers behind his ears, and gave me a look I couldn't read. He's not a domestic. You know that, right? I kept my face blank. Is he gonna die? She sighed. Maybe. He's severely dehydrated. And underweight. But he has a chance. You're keeping the others too? I didn't answer. She didn't push. She gave me some syringes for fluids and a jar of high-protein paste. Said to keep him warm, keep him quiet. On the way back, I passed the old trail that led to the Abrams farm. The place had been half abandoned for years, but I noticed smoke curling from their chimney. Someone was back. That night, while I was syringe feeding the sick cub, my phone rang. It was Larry. You hear what happened? He asked. No. What? Kate called the sheriff. Says she saw a big cat stalking her chicken coop. Tried to scare it off, but it didn't run. Now she's demanding they send wildlife rangers. I stood in the kitchen, one hand on the cub, the other gripping the counter. Did she see what it was? She says it was a lynx. My mouth went dry. Larry kept going. People are spooked, man. That missing dog, the traps, now this. They're thinking about forming a search group. Just warning you. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time. My floor creaked beneath me. The cubs shifted in the box. What if they found her? The mother. What if she got too close to the wrong property? Around midnight, I heard the cubs cry. Not in hunger, something else. Panic. I grabbed a flashlight and ran out into the cold. I checked the edge of the forest where she usually watched from. Nothing. I called out. Nothing answered. I walked the trail with a hunting knife in my belt and the flashlight beam shaking in my hand. About 20 minutes in, I saw the drag marks. Fresh. Blood. Not much, but enough. She was lying under a fallen tree, breathing hard. One hind leg was twisted unnaturally, and her side had an open wound. Fresh. Not an animal attack. Clean edges. A bullet. She didn't growl when I crouched beside her. She just looked at me. I slid my hand along her neck, careful. Her breath hitched. "I can't carry you," I whispered, "but I won't leave you." I stayed there, kneeling in the dirt, hand resting on her side. Hours passed. The forest pressed in close. She let me stay. As dawn broke, she tried to lift her head. I helped her drink from a water bottle. Her eyes never left mine. I didn't know who shot her, but I was starting to guess. And for the first time since moving out here, I wasn't just angry. I was afraid. She couldn't walk. After that morning in the woods, I carried her. Took almost 40 minutes to get her back to the cabin, wrapped in a tarp with her head resting against my chest. She didn't fight, didn't make a sound. I took her through the back door, down into the basement, and laid her on an old mattress I'd never thrown out. The basement was cool and dark, with only a single window high on the wall. I covered it with a blanket and kept the door locked. Each hour I checked her bandages, gave her water with a syringe, tried to keep her still. The bleeding slowed. Her breathing evened out. But she wouldn't eat. I talked to her sometimes. Soft things. Nonsense. Just to hear a voice bounce off the walls. I think it helped me more than her. Upstairs, the cubs were quiet. They knew. Animals know when something is wrong, especially when it's someone they rely on. They stayed close together, barely making a sound. The smallest one nuzzled the shirt I had used to carry him before, like he remembered. That evening, Larry called again. "You should know. Folks are stirring. Sheriff was at Kate's today. She's not letting it go. Says she saw the cat again near her propane tank." I said nothing. I didn't know what to say anymore. Each day was slipping faster, like I was trying to hold on to sand. He went on. "And someone's been talking. Rumor is, someone saw you driving with a box in your truck. Vet visit? You gotta be careful, man. These people scare easy. They think if it's got teeth and claws, it wants to hurt them." I hung up. My stomach knotted. I stood there with the phone in my hand long after the line went dead. An hour later, headlights flashed outside. I moved fast. Put the cubs in the pantry, behind a stack of old camping gear. Covered the basement door with a shelf. Then I opened the front door, pretending like I was surprised. 2 officers stood there. One was young, maybe 25. The other older, stiffer, looked like a man who drank too much coffee and trusted too few people. The older one had a clipboard in hand and a look that said he didn't want small talk. "Evening, sir," the older one said. "Got a call. Someone thinks you might be keeping dangerous wildlife on your property." I raised my eyebrows. Dangerous wildlife? Like what, squirrels? He didn't smile. That one didn't joke. The younger one shifted uncomfortably. "Mind if we take a look around?" I stepped aside. Not really a choice, was it? They moved through the house slow, methodical. I kept close, trying not to look nervous. The younger one peeked in the pantry but didn't move the gear. Thank God. The older one stopped near the basement door. "What's down there?" "Storage. Tools. Old junk." He reached for the handle. I froze. "Deadbolt stuck," I said quickly. "Been meaning to fix it." He looked at me for a long second, then stepped back. "You should fix it," he said. "For safety." They left 10 minutes later. No tickets. No warnings. But the message was clear. Someone was watching. Someone close enough to know too much. I watched their taillights disappear down the driveway. My hands were shaking. That night, I didn't sleep. Not even a little. I sat by the kitchen table with a baseball bat across my lap, listening for anything. The cubs whined a bit in their hiding spot, but settled eventually. I didn't. My heart thudded every time the wind changed. Around 2 a.m., I smelled smoke. I ran out barefoot and found the back shed glowing. Flames licked the roof. The drywood went up fast. Orange sparks danced into the black sky, and the smell of burning tar and pine needles choked the air. I grabbed the garden hose, but it was too late. I just stood there, watching it collapse. Nothing inside but old tools, but still. It wasn't about the shed. On the grass near the ashes, I saw something stuck to a garden stake. A piece of cardboard. No words. Just a crudely drawn cat. XCD out in red marker. Slashed through like a thread, like a curse. The kind of thing kids might draw if they'd seen too much and understood too little. I didn't call the fire department. Didn't call Larry. Just stood there until the last flame died. The next morning, I stood in the basement, looking at her. She was awake. Barely. Her eyes flicked toward me when I sat down beside her. I whispered, "They want you gone. All of you. They don't care about truth. They care about control." She blinked, slow. "I have two options. Let them find you, or move you before they do." I didn't expect a reaction, but she shifted slightly, like she understood. Her ears twitched at my voice, and she tried, just a little, to lift her head. I touched her paw, felt the weak pulse, then went upstairs to start packing. I didn't know where yet, but I knew I had to go. I walked through each room, gathering food, water, anything that could help us survive out there. My truck wasn't big, but it would hold the crate and the cubs. I wrapped the smallest in the same flannel, kissed his head without thinking. Because sometimes, it doesn't matter what's true, only what people believe. And out here, fear speaks louder than reason, louder than kindness, louder than me. When I looked out the window, I saw a truck parked at the tree line, just sitting there. No one came out, but I knew they were watching. By the next morning, I had a plan. The cubs were fed, warm, tucked into a lined crate in the back of the truck. The mother, still too weak to walk, was wrapped in blankets, sedated with the last dose of pain meds Dr. Wallace had given me. I loaded everything slowly, quietly, checking over my shoulder with every sound. I didn't sleep. I didn't dare. When the truck was ready, I drove 3 miles to Larry's place. He was chopping wood behind the shed, shirt off, face set like a man waiting for a fight. When he saw me, he stopped mid-swing. We stood there in silence. Then I said it. "I know it was you." He didn't flinch. "Why?" He wiped his forehead with his wrist. "She killed my dog," he said. "That big one, the mutt. Rex." I tracked the prints. I saw her near the tree line. And then I saw her. Last week. Chased a fox right through my field like it was nothing. She didn't care I was watching. He set the axe down. I got scared, man. I did. I didn't know if she'd stop. Or if she'd come closer next time. "You were feeding them. You brought them closer. They came on their own." He nodded, slowly. "Maybe. But they stayed because of you. And people are talking. You saw the shed. That wasn't me. But it could have been worse." I clenched my fists, but my voice stayed low. "Give me a day. One more. Let me move them. After that, you'll never see them again." He looked away, then nodded. One day, I left without another word. Back at the cabin, the woods felt different. Thinner, like something had been taken out of the air. I parked under the trees and carried the supplies back inside. The cubs mewed from the crate, restless. I sat by the basement door and listened to the silence behind it. Then I opened it. She was gone. My heart seized. The blanket was torn aside. Blood on the floor, faint but fresh. Not enough to mean death, but enough to mean pain. I searched the whole house. Nothing. Checked the edges of the yard. The woods. Called softly. No answer. Then I saw the drag marks. Not far. Maybe 100 yards behind the house. Down into the gully. Toward the old creek. And there she was. Lying beneath the same tree where I'd found her the first time. Curled this time. Still. I dropped to my knees beside her. Her body was warm, but her breath was gone. No wound this time. Just silence. But it wasn't peaceful. It was unfinished. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat with her for a long time. Until the sun moved. When I came back to the house, the crate was open. The cubs were gone. My first thought was a break-in. But nothing else was touched. Nothing stolen. Just missing. Then I saw it. A piece of paper taped to the inside of the door. Scratched handwriting, barely legible. She took them with her. "Don't follow. Don't speak. Don't come looking. Not your world." I stared at it for a long time. My hands trembled, but not from fear. Because I knew who wrote it. And I knew they believed it. I buried her behind the shed, beneath the pines. Wrapped her in the same tarp I used to save her. Marked the spot with a flat stone and nothing else. No words. No one came to the house after that. No more visits. No more threats. The cubs were never seen again. Not by me, not by anyone I knew. Maybe they didn't survive. Maybe they did. Sometimes at night, I hear something move at the edge of the woods. A rustle, a breath, a shape I can't quite make out. And I choose not to look. Because what I learned is this. You can't save everything, but you can try. And sometimes, that trying becomes the only thing that matters. The lynx changed me. The silence after her death changed me more. People say the woods are wild, but the truth is, it's not the woods you need to fear. It's the people who walk through them, pretending they understand. I came out here to be alone, and I got what I asked for. But I'm not the same man who arrived, and I never will be again.